Happy New Year once again, I guess, you friggin' bonies. A lot of you asked me to review this album. I had no idea what it was. I'd never heard of Edward Skeletrix. I didn't know what museum music was, but in general, if I get a lot of comments on a lot of different videos, it means there's something I should check out. So maybe this is another Thunderground Thursday entry here. And as I thought about why is it that you wanted me to review this so much, it became clear as I listened. This is maybe the most effective or clearest intersection between Swedish rap and Atlanta rap. So it has the trappy, ragey weirdness of a Cardi album mixed with a sad and emotional, ethereal Drain Gang style album. And those are things that internet kids love. So it makes sense that you'd appreciate it. But I'm not going to compare this to Cardi and to Blady. Rather, I'm going to be comparing it to Frank Zappa and Albert Camus. Thank you for auditing the Always Positive New Music Review Show, hosted by a French professor who, maybe it sounds like I'm taking it too seriously, but I think this is art that desperately wants to be taken seriously, even though it is putting forth a kind of absurdist, ridiculous facade, even though it is trying not to take itself seriously. I think when it calls itself museum music, it's doing that with a wink, saying like it's not really music that's to be in a museum, but at the same time, I think that we need to take it that seriously. That's a very modern piece of art which has so many different layers of irony that we don't really know where to start. And the understanding of this album, there's one repeated theme. And so if you're a fan of this album, you probably know what I'm going to say. If not, hopefully I can pull you through into this album because it's really quite interesting. I've got to stop saying the word interesting. Anyways, it's really quite fascinating. Life is so funny, it must be a joke. Life is so funny is repeated over and over and over again, and that must be, if we think of this as a museum piece, and we think of there as being a painting, I would say the painting would be titled Life is So Funny. So I'm going to go on a brief little explanation here of absurdist philosophy. And maybe you already know this. Maybe you took Philosophy 101. Maybe you've spent some time studying Camus and Kierkegaard just on your own. But if not, hey, what else am I doing? It's still my winter break. I'm having fun here. So let's kind of get started with this book by Kierkegaard, Fear and Trembling, a book that my father gave me when I was 17 years old. He's like, here you go, Skye Bar. You should have this. No explanation, no cliff notes, nothing. Just here you go. And I remember reading it, and it really moved me. The basic idea of this is where he really gets to the problem, which is that these great questions of existence, the great meaning, all of the great transcendent, glorious things are impossible to perceive of or understand on any kind of human level. You can't perceive of infinity, right? You can't. You cannot. You cannot perceive of anything infinite. You cannot perceive of God, really. It's absurd. And that's the point, is that the ability of the humans to understand the entire universe and its meaning, it's absurd. And like our efforts to try to put some kind of rational superstructure over the absolute chaos and enormity and impossibility of the world is just absurd. So Kierkegaard's answer to this was to take a leap of faith, because he was very keen on Jesus Christ. So that was his idea, leap of faith. But what happens when you hit the 20th century? You have World War I, you're putting gas masks on horses, you have a whole bunch of stuff that nothing matters. Reason doesn't work. It was a nice experiment. This whole thing that started all the way back in Greece, it was a nice experiment, but this one's trash, scrap it, we just have to start over again. Which is where the modern sense of absurdism came about, primarily through the work of Albert Camus. Okay? I don't actually have the Myth of Sisyphus, which is a better exemplary of that rather than The Stranger, but that's in my office. Here's also a picture of Albert Camus as a pigeon. So there you go. I'm going to read this for you because it's a pretty good quote. I looked up at the mass of signs and stars in the night sky and laid myself open for the first time to the benign indifference of the world. You see, that was the thing that Camus felt. He totally understood that it was pointless, that life had no meaning. But he went one step further. He didn't think that there's no meaning but believe in God. He was like, there's no God. So there's just nothing. There's absolute nothing. It is all absurd. All of our efforts, all of our desires, all of our faith system, just everything. It's all nothing. We're just going to die, and nothing that we do will mean anything to anybody ever on the larger scale. So the way he saw it was there's basically the issue of whether or not you should do something that will get this video demonetized, which involves stopping the natural course of your life by artificial means. Okay? So to him, that was the great question. And the way that he saw it, I have to plug in my phone because it's running low on battery. Hopefully I don't unplug my microphone. I guess I could pause this, but this is more real. You know, this is old Skye style. It doesn't matter if I have this new setup, you know what I'm saying? This new setup that the doctor and Mrs. got for me where I'm all in HD, I'm still janky. Anyways, he understood, Camus understood, that it's just pointless. There's nothing, no God, nothing. And so what you can do is don't kill yourself. Don't unalive yourself. Just embrace the absurdity. Just be like, who cares? So what? Nothing means anything. That's great. We're freed from the future. We're freed from the past. All we can do is live like Bo and Toby behind me over here, okay? That's all we can do. That's all we can do. We can just be like these little weird mutts. And we can just live in the present, and that's it. And we can try and find meaning, or just embrace the fact that there is no meaning. I think when you listen to this album, that's at the heart of so much of it, that life is just absurd. It's just pointless, and what's the point, and let's lay bare everything. But I don't think it's just that. I also want to bring up one of my favorite artists, one of the most interesting artists, Frank Zappa, who, now that I think about my dad, was my dad and my mom's favorite artist. And in particular, this album, We're Only in It for the Money. One of his great albums from the 60s, where he was just entirely tearing apart the Beatles, okay? But more than tearing apart the Beatles, he was tearing apart the hippies. And this is a fascinating album because it was satire. It was trying to be like a hippie album at times, while also trying to make fun of what a hippie album was through exaggeration, which is what satire is. You exaggerate something to the point where you're mocking it, okay? It is sort of a self-conscious meta-commentary on the nature of the form of hippie music itself, while having added abstract flourishes. And I think that's how we could describe Edward Skeletrix as well. Just an interesting study in how trap music is made, how rage music is made, how rap music is made, kind of satirizing it at points, but also taking it into more and interesting directions in the same way that Frank Zappa did. So, I don't know. I think that's interesting because the truth of absurdity in the 21st century is not the same as the absurdity of the 20th century. Because the 20th century had the death of God, and that was a bummer, because God was pretty cool, and it was a nice thing to believe in. But we have, for the most part, replaced all of those feelings, and this is especially true in popular American culture, with buying stuff. Whatever that feeling was, whatever that thing that replaced that sense of emptiness. In Kierkegaard's time, we could take a leap of faith and believe in God. In our current time, we just have to keep shopping, you know? We just have to buy the new iPhone 16, which is what I'm filming this with, because it actually does have a better camera. I actually needed this phone for this channel. I should do it as a write-off. I don't know how to do that yet, though. You know, if you're like a content creator and you know how to do LLC, hit me up in the comments, because I feel like I should do that. Point is, we have replaced the emptiness of no God with a very different kind of emptiness. That is the emptiness of constant consuming, the emptiness of Lamborghinis, the emptiness of Hugo Boss clothing, the emptiness of Stanley cups, the emptiness of everything that we can go and buy. And this album is a very effective combination, as I read it, of the absurdity of Kierkegaard and Camus meets the satire of Frank Zappa in an age of hyperconsumerism. in a museum. And it's this really super clear thesis that takes me through this album that a lot of times I didn't understand what the words were. I don't even think it was always necessary that I understood, because I think he was kind of making a commentary on mumble rap while also being mumble rap. You know what I'm saying? A great flow to the album, super well produced, very like easy listen, even though it was very challenging. It was also very easy, very avant-garde with a lot of the beats, you know, really pushing levels of what is listenable. Sorry, that was a sound upstairs. I don't know what that is. I might have to pause this to go make sure all my kids are good, but I'm sure my wife will tell me. And if you like that kind of aside, and if you like what I'm cooking up right now, smash like bucket, subscribe. AVAA stands for awesome video as always. I'm getting back into the flow of things. I'm getting out of the weird January weirdness, you know. Hopefully going to do more normal videos. I got that Bad Bunny coming up if I like it. I haven't listened to it yet. So let's get to the opening track. Congratulations, with canned applause and this really sleepy intro. This guy, damn you, Skeletrix, he's barely able to enunciate. I just think that it's funny, all the chaos, death, and destruction. I just want to take this time to say, be happy, you know. Do you see? Do you understand why this album fits so nicely in the context of absurdist philosophy and this angelic choir, which is almost laughing at him in the back, that leads right into typical rap song number 11. Once again, I feel like we're back in this kind of Frank Zappa era of doing the thing that he is making fun of with such a self-conscious title as typical rap song number 11. Sonically, again, I feel like we're really in between Sweden and Atlanta. I should have done the math to figure out what was the exact midpoint between Atlanta and Sweden. I'm going to guess somewhere in the goddamn Atlantic Ocean. It could be a satire of trap beats. I don't know. These lyrics, does he mean it when he says, she got a big booty, yeah, slap her on the ass cheek, want to have rich sex now, I don't even beat my meat, I said F the chains, cannot be me, I'm a demon, SR Studio, stripper, pocket so fatty, need lipo. It's hard to tell. It's hard to tell. And that's what I like. I like that I can't tell. Because if I knew that he was just making fun of this kind of rapping, I would maybe find it a little bit pretentious. And if I knew he was serious, I might find it a little bit, you know, meat and potatoes, a little bit just kind of straightforward Atlanta, you know, rap. But because I don't know, what does he mean when he says rich sex? Is he making fun of the Drake song? Is he, or is it, no, I think it's a Future song. Anyways, is he making fun of that idea, or is he actually doing that idea? Who needs the Peace Corps? These great whining sounds in the back. There's this quote of some girl saying, it's hot girl summer. I don't quite understand what this is about. Life is so funny. Here's the thesis. Super altered auto-tune, echoes and such. It's pronounced by someone named lowercase o, zero, lowercase o. I presume that's pronounced O0O? I don't know, but he's a very good producer, and the fact you can't pronounce his name, I think is intentional. And I think he's singing in the beginning, and it's sort of these inspirational sounds and this distorted and dreamy verse here with these wisps of synthesizers and just this repetition. Life's so funny, it's got to be a joke. There's a way of repeating, there's a way of repetition that is in and of itself a statement of the absurd. If you say something enough, it's a statement of the absurd. If you say something enough, it's a statement of the absurd. If you say something enough, it's a statement of the absurd. The song goes on. Life's so funny, I gotta be a joke. It keeps repeating it over and over again. It's important because if you repeat something enough, it becomes absurd. I fell in love with a troll. I thought he said I fell in love with a trope. Interesting. Blurry picture, parentheses, psychosis, these tinkling synthesizers. Unclear what he's saying. This is maybe more on the Sweden side than the Atlanta side. If you don't know what I'm talking about, go check out one of my videos on Blady, because Blady or what's his face, Young Lean, there's this kind of like airy style of rap music made out of Sweden that I think this sounds a lot like. I'm on the internet for all my drugs, too legit. I just slick her hair back, little hoe like it. Yeah, really on drugs. Yeah, I stroke me a cool little kitten. Again, I can't tell where he is. I cannot tell what his posture is, how intentional or how ironic he's being. The track Plastic Body is, to me, the perfect synthesis of everything in this album. Someday, I may do a video on punk music in France in the 1970s. You were expecting me to say that. So what makes it interesting in the 70s is that that was the end of the 30 glorious years. So at the end of the 30 glorious years in 1975, after World War II, everything was great. The reason everything was great was because we had oil. And with oil being cheap, we could have cars and we could make plastic, because plastic comes from dinosaur bones. If you don't know, it comes from fossil fuels. Okay, so like all of these products were made cheaply, and the whole economy was all built on plastic. And then once the price of oil went up, all these economies crashed. And at that same time, all of these young kids and all these punks understood that everything that they thought was meaningful was just plastic. It was just disposable, easy to make, non-durable trash that's going to pollute the earth. As Frank Zappa would say, I think on a different album, we are the plastic people. Of course, Frank Zappa said it a fucking decade before everyone else did, because Frank Zappa was always ahead of the culture. He always understood the problem before everyone else understood what the problem was. So plastic, just the concept of plastic itself has a... Jesus Christ, am I going to have to do this? Am I going to have to do this? Okay. If you get a book and you study semiotics, which is the study of signs, the word plastic is a very semiotically rich word that implies consumer society, it implies pollution, it implies modernism, it implies disposability, it implies oil, it implies all those things. So this plastic body, obviously he's talking about BBLs, which are Brazilian butt lifts, where people put plastic in their butts, and people put plastic in their lips, and people put plastic in their boobs. And he's talking about the fact that I can't feel you. I can't feel you when you have plastic in your body, and you can't feel me. And this is true. You know, I mean, if you are ever, with somebody who has plastic enhancements, there is a level of distance between you and that person. Like there is a level of distance between flesh and flesh and body and body. Like that, it's a piece of fabric. It's a piece of something that you cannot take off, that is in between you and the person who you're with. Like that's literally what it is. I'm not saying it's good or bad. It's what it is. Whether it's a BBL, boob job, or lip filler, or whatever, or calf implants if you're a dude. And if they ever figured out how to make dong implants, that would just be the number one seller. No, not dog implants. I said dong implants. I don't need any more of these dogs. Toby's been eating all my records. It's terrible. So anyways, the plastic body, it's a really sad song. And the way that it describes this woman, it doesn't. I don't think it's a misogynist song against the woman. I think it's a song about modern society and about the distances that we have between each other, that we put between each other in the name of some kind of superficial image of what one should be, right? No one gets a Brazilian butt lift or a boob job to feel better. They do it to look better, right? So, I mean, like tactile. They don't do it for the tactile. They do it for the visual. They might do it for the emotional, right? What do I know? Man. I am a victim of patriarchy, but not in that direction. Not in that way. Man, F it. Put the BBL in her will. Therapy ain't gonna help. Ain't gonna help. Better try them pills. Nodding off, slumped over girl, begging for a handout. It's just a ridiculously sad line, and this is, again, to me, this is a really existentialist, painful album, because he's describing this state where this person is so empty, has no sense of meaning, the only thing they can do is grab for pills and grab for plastic to try to feel something. Ha ha, life's so funny, laughing at junkies, laughing at junkies, laughing at money, laughing at money. Hey, you racist out there? Are you racist? You're not. I mean, I hope you're not racist watching this. The society we live in is racist, so our individual ability to not be racist is great. But until our whole society comes into line with that, we have a long way to go. But I think if this were like in a song by some, skinny art student out of New York, and who was actually trying to get into museums, and had a song like this, laughing at junkies is a crazy good sentence. That's a really philosophically powerful sentence. Laughing at junkies, laughing at money. But I think because he's a rapper, because he's a black guy out of Atlanta, maybe we're not holding him to the same level of admiration, or we're not. Our societal instincts is not to take him as seriously as I am taking him right now, and that's one thing. Hopefully, I could do with this channel. I am not fucking kidding when I talk about RXK Nephew and epistemology. I'm not. Just because people do not study the things that I compare them to does not mean they do not illustrate those things, or that they are not playing in the same philosophical sandbox. They are. I don't know anything about Skeletrix, okay? I don't know. As far as he might have got a doctorate in philosophy at Yale. I don't know anything about him. I don't know how old he is. I don't know anything about him. But I do know that he is in the same sandbox as Kierkegaard and Zappa. And hopefully this video will get you interested in those sandboxes too. I like how his voice is never raging in this album. There's just, god damn, this album is so well produced. There's great feedback sounds with a guitar, like a new little melody at the end. Then the next song, I'm not going to say the whole word, but it's Slave N Words, Still Shop at Neiman's. There's a lot of Kanye in this album, positively. That's one of my early successful videos, was where I said how Kanye was the most successful performance artist of all time. And the reason that we don't think of him that way is that same racism that I was just talking about, the systemic racism, where we sort of discount any avant-garde action made by people who are not a part of the white superstructure, because we just assume that it's naively done and it's not done with intentionality. So, like, I think there's a lot of Kanye in this, and I think this song is very clearly just a continuation of the song New Slaves. I think it is. I think it's just following in that same basic idea. Really, really distorted, crazy, awesome song here. Typical rap song number 12, kind of more trap, hi-hat sounds, these chains. There's this wild... Okay. I don't know who produced this. I don't know. But I swear to God, I hear the first note of Simply Having a Wonderful Christmas Time by Paul McCartney. It's just one note. I just hear that one note. You tell me, do you hear it? And then we hear the sound of silver tape, of duct tape being pulled off. I drop-topped my clothing. Admit it, you don't want it. Skeletrix got the motion. Skeletrix got hosen. Wipe them tears, don't show emotion. There's a whole other theme here of somebody who's trapped in an emotionless world, trapped. Again, hey, this is patriarchy working against men. Men are encouraged not to show emotion. He is encouraged not to show emotion. God made you a monster. These high sounds, slow down vocals, all these layers and these chipped sounds. And life's so funny, we can't all be winners. Life is so funny, we can't all be winners. This is maybe more of a socio-economic take, maybe talking about the absurdity that we see might be felt harder by those who don't come from money, or who have less access to those powerful structures I was talking about, who don't have access to power and wealth. Maybe you feel that the absurdity of life is even more cruel because, Camus wasn't like born super rich, but he was born French in Algeria, and he had access to education. He was super well educated, and he had a good future ahead of him. It'd be very different if he was like an actual, if he was like a native Algerian born in Algeria and incapable of going to school because he had to work for his family. That's very different. It's very different. Drug dealer injects his fentanyl, psychosis, just absolute insanity. Voice is totally unclear. I see blood in the Cullinan. A beautiful lyric about the correlation between those that exploit for wealth and the consequences. So they exploit people by selling them fentanyl, and then there's blood in the Cullinan. Racks on racks on racks. That's one of the themes in this album, all over the place, racks on racks. Next song's called Skeletrix Island. I'm mentally checked out, but that's okay. All about this pain and numbness, about being misunderstood. Drug story, these little drips and drops. You can't buy a hug. Really, despite the complexity of this album, or despite the fact that it's obtuse, it's not, it's opaque. It's not inviting clear reading. It is very clear that it's about this sense of loneliness and the sense of inability of connecting to other people and the plasticness and the emptiness. It's really about the emptiness. And you can fill up the emptiness with drugs, or you can fill up the emptiness with money or with colonins or whatever it is, but you cannot buy that hug for retail. And I think there's a sound of when you beat Chun-Li in Street Fighter 2. That's 2 Street Fighter 2 references in 1 week on Professor Skye's channel. Killing over likes, sort of like the Neiman song. I feel like he does a thing where he's just sort of like, here's a title. The title's good. We'll work out the song later. These wavy sounds, making art for money. Again, this is exactly the kind of self-referential wankery that goes into a lot of great art music. And hey, maybe I'm just slow to the game, and maybe all of the fancy hootie-hoos in New York City are salivating over this album and congratulating themselves for understanding how amazing it is. I need my racks up, racks. What will fill the void? Racks will fill the void. OnlyFan. How did he do that? How has no one else done this? Taken the term OnlyFans and used it as a sign of loneliness. I'm your OnlyFan, girl. You ain't got no friends. That's what OnlyFan. If you're watching this in the future, there used to be a website. I don't know. I never went there. I'm not saying I wouldn't have when I was younger, but I certainly won't while I'm happily married, where you pay people money to look at them. Well, you're not technically, I'm not technically an OnlyFan. This is kind of like OnlyFans. I am standing in a hot tub, like in a little kiddie pool, so I might take my shirt off at the end of the video. But it was a very interesting moment because men have a real connection to the women, and the thing is always that the men are really desperate and lonely, but here it's flipping it around, making it the women are lonely. Tell that B word. Oh yeah, and also there's a sample. I think it's from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. Why does it always seem like I'm the one holding the shit end of the stick? I'm pretty sure that's D. Tell that B word, don't effing kill yourself. Getting all that surgery, don't effing kill yourself. Retail therapy for your mental health. Camus understood that when you get to the bottom of the absurdity of life, the great question is why keep going. He wrote a whole book about this philosophy called the myth of Sisyphus. Sisyphus was this king who was a jerk, and he went to hell. When he was in hell, he was punished to push a rock up a hill, and whenever he'd get to the top of the hill, it would just start over again. And Camus sort of invites us to rethink this moment and think, if this is life, maybe the key is finding the absurd joy of just pushing that rock up the hill. I don't know. So maybe if you're on OnlyFans, you need to find the absurd joy of, I don't know, showing your feet and getting $3. I don't know how much it costs to show people your feet. That was not a thing when I was growing up. The foot thing? It was 2008. It's the first time I ever heard about that. And it was a friend of my then wife who said, if a girl walks by wearing sandals, it's like she just took her shirt off. I was like, dude, I'm just trying to enjoy my coffee. But anyways, hey, I'm not trying to kink shame. I'm just telling you that wasn't a thing. Why am I telling you that? Maybe it's not a good thing that the doctor and Mrs. gave me this camera that I can record at night. I feel like I'm getting a little loopy. But don't worry, we're going to get to the final song, Bro Will Kill You for a Band. And this is everything that is implicit in the album made absolutely explicit. The emptiness of modern life. In particular, the emptiness of the values of trap rap music, of the extreme commercialism of rap music, of the savage, hyper-capitalist attitude in between human beings in which we forsake our humanity in the name of money because we have replaced anything of transcendent value with the value of money. Man, I can't trust none of my kin, and your bro would kill you for a band. It's like $1,000, right? Maybe $10,000. Sometimes I really hate being human. Hey, what's up, philosophy student, 10 years from now? Are you enjoying my take? Did you do a good time trying to figure out if people at the time recognized what a great piece of existentialist art Edward Skeletrix made with this album? Are you also a little bit frustrated that you aren't the first person to find it? It's okay. It's okay. I know. I'm here. I hope everything is going just awesome in 2035. I really do. Man, that'll be awesome. Jesus Christ. 2035. Sometimes I really hate being human. They so fake on my children. Had to override all my feelings. New slaves, popping pills. Yeah, I feel like yay, feel like yay. I love this line because he's making reference to New Slaves, which I think is in reference to the Neiman song. But also, like, the thing about Kanye West, obviously, he says a lot of terrible things. But, like, there is a tragedy in him that's different than a tragedy in someone else, where you could, if you're being very kind, see him as somebody who is killed, who basically lost his battle with his mental health, but part of it was that he was burning so bright and seeing things so clearly, that he had such a vision, and like he just couldn't possibly keep going with this level of brilliance and creativity without losing his mind. Sir, I'm insane, man, I'm insane. How did you kill your brother over a B word? How'd you kill your brother over a band? So there you go. These are my new Patreon sheets, including my new subscribers. So those are people who sign up through YouTube, because you can also help the channel through YouTube. This stuff really helps with diapers and with groceries, and also when I buy music, because I've been, I try to buy music. So these are my Patreons over here. Man, I got a lot of Patreons, y'all. I got a lot of Patreons and subscribers. So if you want to be one of these August folks, then go to patreon.com or just sign up on my little thing there, the little membership deal. I ask for shout outs on Patreon. Bowden Braga wants one. Cinny wants one. Bill wants one. Nick was surprised I'm doing this album. I'm doing this album because my viewers know that I might listen to them. Carter P. and Carsick. All right, how long was this video? See, I don't know. My old setup, I used to know 32 minutes. Super respectable. A good amount of time for a really great album. Tell me, what else do I need to know about Edward Skeletrix? Did he name himself after the I Think You Should Leave sketch? I really need to know. Damn you, Skeletrix. He must have, right? Anyways, there's the dogs again. I already showed you the dogs. They're not worried about the absurdity of existence. But I did catch Toby trying to chew up my copy of Paranoid by Black Sabbath. Bad dog. There's the camera.